Today, we're breaking down a conflict that has absolutely spiraled out of control. What began in just one corner of the Middle East has now completely engulfed the entire region, and believe me, the shockwaves are being felt all across the globe.
To put it bluntly, the Middle East is on fire. What started as a localized war has just erupted into the single most dangerous regional conflict we've seen in decades.
So, to really get how we ended up here, we have to go back to the very spark that ignited this whole firestorm. Just take a look at how quickly all of this unfolded. What's so striking is the sheer speed of the escalation. I mean, we went from a fragile ceasefire to a direct confrontation involving world powers in just a couple of years. Every single step you see here was like another log being thrown onto the fire. Okay, so that initial Israeli military operation, it was one of the most intense of the 21st century. The stated goal was pretty clear: the complete dismantlement of Hamas's military and its ability to govern inside the Gaza Strip. And that operation, well, it came at a truly staggering human cost. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, the death toll in just that initial phase went past 72,000 Palestinians. It's a number that really speaks to the sheer ferocity of the fighting. You know, for a brief moment there in early 2025, it felt like there was a glimmer of hope. A ceasefire was actually reached, but it was so fragile. When the negotiations over releasing the remaining hostages broke down, the fighting just resumed with a new intensity, completely dashing any hopes for a lasting peace. But here's the thing. The conflict didn't stay contained. While the world's attention was glued to Gaza, a tinderbox over in Iran was about to ignite, and that opened up a second, absolutely terrifying front. Inside Iran, years of sanctions and, frankly, economic mismanagement were hitting a breaking point, and the result? A massive explosion of anger on the streets. These weren't just political protests. This was the sound of a population being pushed right to the very edge. The Iranian government's response was swift, and it was severe. On January 8th, 2026, they just pulled the plug. They plunged the entire country into an internet blackout. Why? To stop protesters from organizing and, of course, to hide their crackdown from the rest of the world. And behind that digital curtain, a brutal reality was unfolding. Even with the blackout, reports started to trickle out. Human rights groups were documenting a violent suppression, things like the use of lethal force against unarmed civilians. This internal crackdown, combined with all the chaos in the region, it prompted a huge strategic shift from the United States. Suddenly, we saw carrier strike groups, bombers, thousands of troops all moving into the region. It was a clear signal that patience was wearing incredibly thin. And this massive military buildup, it wasn't just for show. All of these pieces moving on the board were leading to one single inevitable flashpoint, a military operation that would change the course of this conflict forever. That flashpoint was called Operation Epic Fury. On February 28, 2026, the long-running shadow war between Iran, Israel, and the U.S. just erupted into open conflict. This was it, the first large-scale, overt military action against the Iranian state itself. And the target was completely unprecedented. These strikes didn't just hit military bases, they went right for the very top. They killed Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. This was a decapitation strike, literally designed to throw the entire regime into chaos. Iran's counterstrike was immediate, and it was widespread. They unleashed this torrent of hundreds of ballistic missiles and thousands of attack drones, and they weren't just aimed at Israel, but at U.S. military bases and allied Arab Gulf states across the entire region. The war had officially gone regional. And with that single act of retaliation, the conflict just exploded, far beyond those initial flashpoints. The entire Middle East was now a battlefield. So this is no longer a contained conflict. As of today, we're talking about over a dozen countries that have been pulled into the fighting, whether as active combatants, hosts for military bases, or as direct targets of these attacks. And when you look at the list of players involved, you really get a sense of just how complex this battlefield has become. We've got national armies, powerful proxy forces like Hezbollah and the Houthis, and the full weight of superpower military assets. The entire region, all the way from the Mediterranean to the Persian Gulf, is now an active war zone. But here's a really critical factor that shaped how this all unfolded. For the 2 years leading up to this explosion, Israel had been systematically degrading the capabilities of Iran's key proxies. So what does that mean? It means powerful groups like Hezbollah and the Houthis entered this wider war in a significantly weakened state, and that limited their ability to open up effective new fronts against Israel and its allies. So where does this leave us? Well, the region has been fundamentally changed. It's entered a new and, frankly, a terrifyingly unpredictable era, where all the old rules of engagement have been completely thrown out the window.
Every diplomatic off-ramp has been missed. Every single warning has been ignored. This isn't a crisis to be de-escalated anymore. It's an act of war. And the future of this entire region is now being decided by force.
And that brings us to the final, really unsettling question that's on everyone's mind. With the region in flames and major powers fully committed to the fight, what comes next? That is a question for which, right now, absolutely nobody knows